Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday. You'll see Slimer and Cthulhu are back, and I kept the Dragon Walker here, Scouts, right here, just out of frame. Scouty, please don't knock the vintage He-Man toys off the desk, okay, buddy? Thank you. Okay, so we're talking about something that's sort of like my thing. Depictions of women in media, especially video games. Now, you guys know that I have been sort of processing the whole Activision Blizzard thing. Not being able to talk about something like that for 12 years since the whole thing started. Back in, 2007, 2008, around there. The only reason I remember what year it is, I remember what games were out at the time. And it's like, oh yeah, that was shortly after the Warhammer MMO came out, which was 2008. So, it's been a lot not being able to talk about it, then finally being able to talk about it. It's, that's nice. But then some things happened in the aftermath, and it's been a really big week of news with depictions of women between the announcement with the Sports Illustrated swimsuit covers with Megan Thee Stallion, Naomi Osaka, and Lena Bloom. There's 3 covers. I think this is a brilliant idea, variant covers. Sports Illustrated has figured out how to make this work. But then there's the women's gymnastics team, and I will show pictures of them like that, but the German women gymnastics team deciding to wear unitards instead of the typical bodysuits to prevent the sexualization of them while they're competing. And then we go over to gaming, where in the aftermath of the Blizzard Activision thing, some male developers, not all, and certainly not the majority, but some male developers decided to grandstand and make it about them and their big contributions to protecting the women's. And one of these big statements involved Rivet, the female Ratchet counterpart in Ratchet and Clank. I don't know why 2021 is the year of multiverse female versions of male main characters. It's kind of interesting that people who are allegedly so terrified of, feminist frequencies analysis would go straight into a Miss Male character, but I don't believe in that trope anyway. I'm just saying, if that's the paradigm, people seem to not care very much anymore, or they've forgotten. But if you like this sort of analysis when I get into deep dive, because I am going somewhere with this, and the fact that, all joking aside, the world where the Megan Thee Stallion Sports Illustrated cover inhabits is a completely different world from obsessing about the boobs of a female Lombax. And I think that the German female gymnastics team lands somewhere in the middle. And I want to do an examination of how, media reflects opinion more than it creates opinion. There's no proof that video games make you sexist, that any form of media makes you sexist. What it can do is normalize opinions, right? I beat this drum all the time, right? What is considered normal? That's what it does. So if you like this sort of analysis, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Okay, so let's start with the good part, because I am loving these Sports Illustrated covers, okay? Loving them. Now, I am partial to Megan. Anybody who watches my Twitch channel knows that. But these are all really pretty covers, very different. Naomi Osaka was chosen for her, off the court mental health advocacy, as well as, her athletic prowess. And she looks great. I mean, it's cool to see 3 very different female bodies on the Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover. I mean, the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition is kind of a benchmark for what society considers beautiful. And the fact that there's Black mixed race women, one of whom is trans, Lena Bloom is trans, first trans model to be on the Sports Illustrated, I think in the magazine at all. But then there's Megan, right? Who is thick. And there has been a decided lack of thick in Sports Illustrated. But all of these models validate a particular portion of the population. But what it also does, by having 3 covers, by having variants, it shows that no one type of woman is the only acceptable kind of woman there is. They're all they're all black or mixed race, but the body types run the gamut. And if video games could run this kind of diversity in body type, we'd be much better off. I also want to read the messaging, the text that Sports Illustrated released with the Megan Thee Stallion cover in particular. It says, Megan Thee Stallion doesn't stay in one lane. In fact, she encourages everyone to be in multiple. And this is what we love about her. She captured the world's attention with her music and style. But what caught our attention was her unfiltered approach to the way she makes you think. She uses her platform to push boundaries, dissect societal norms, and encourage humans to think about the backward way our society continues to operate. Megan is a vessel for change, and we are honored to have her on our 2021 cover. In other words, they really liked Ratchet Bougie Classic. I did too. I love that song. Because for people who know, Ratchet, Bougie, Classy, it's 3 states of being for women, right? It's the way women tended to be sorted and so on and so forth. I love that song. They talk about Naomi Osaka and so on, but it's the fact that they are not just physically different, which is very important, but that they are, in terms of what they do as people. The Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition is treating women as whole people better than the so-called feminist trends in video games are lately. And this brings me to Rivet. Now, I have to tread very lightly here, okay? Because the guy who went off on this whole thing has me blocked on Twitter. Irony of ironies, big defender of women, has me blocked. But I do not want to get accused of harassing him, so I am not going to name names. I am going to summarize, basically. It was a rather lengthy rant. I'm going to summarize what he said, not read it, because again, I want to make this as hard to find as possible. So, irony of ironies, I don't get accused of harassing a guy. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's perfectly fine in terms of equality. If we want people to not harass women, we have to lay off dudes as well. But basically, he went on a Twitter chain about a behind-the-scenes fight at Insomniac over this character, Rivet, who again is a female version of Ratchet from another dimension. And apparently there was a big fight over the size of her boobs and hips. Now, the small boobs contingent won, which was the side this dude who was very, very upset about the horrible mistreatment of women, and somehow the cup size of a Lombax has anything to do with how real women at game companies are treated. Pro tip, it doesn't. But the side that wanted the smaller proportions won, which was his side. And he's still very, very upset and insisting the system isn't working. That's my first issue with it. Dude, you won the fight. The system worked. Fights are going to happen over creative things. Everybody feels strongly. Everybody wants it to be good. There are different ideas of what constitutes good. But you won. Take the W, right? Like, take the win. Don't be a sore winner. But it was his rationale. This may be triggering for some people in terms of body dysphoria. But his argument was so bad that it was apparently him the lead writer who was female and a trans man who were arguing for the smaller boobed version of Rivet. And this defender of women lumped the trans man in with the female experience because the trans man had lived as a woman. Now, if you're a little bit confused what the problem is, okay? One, a trans man is a man. They may have been assigned a gender at birth that was not their own. They were assigned the female gender, like woman gender. But they've been a man their whole life. People didn't recognize that. People didn't validate that. But they've been a man. You may think this is a semantic argument, but it's a semantic argument that's very important to some people. But the bigger point is it's really insensitive to have somebody who may be very dysphoric about the whole idea of breasts in a heated conversation about breasts. Some of you may have seen a conversation we had on my Twitch channel. We speak very frankly on my Twitch channel. It's wonderful that way, the mutual respect that happens. And, you know, a trans man was honest enough and trusting enough to admit that he hates breasts because he's dysphoric, like, you know. And I kind of made a joke of, oh geez, man, I'm sorry, you know, kind of laughed it off. He thought he offended me at first, and I'm like, no, man, I'm just joking, like, it's good, I'm trying to lighten the mood. But lumping a trans man in with female opinion, I think shows that this person who was on this great crusade against, what did he call it? Rat woman titties? Like, the fact that he even used that terminology in a public forum, to me, is somewhat grotesque. If you're speaking about a body that you do not have and you're trying to be respectful, please say breast or something that isn't asinine. If you're joking around or something like that, it's not serious. That's a completely different thing. And what you do when you're joking around with your friends is something different. But when you're talking seriously about things, that is not appropriate. And while I agree that giant mammaries on a character with this design probably was the wrong call. Ratchet is kind of athletic. We're going for more of a Naomi Osaka here than a Megan Thee Stallion. But the fact that this guy was so irate when he'd won and was grandstanding all over this Blizzard Activision thing, what that does when people are making a big deal about boobs is it makes women very hyper aware that we are being judged on that standard. And other people, men and women alike, have very strong opinions about the way women look, in a way that there is not a similar. Men may claim, well, penis size is a thing too, but people don't see that when you're walking around fully clothed, guys. You got to understand that the connecting some sort of moral to the size of your chest is an issue. The fact that, actresses like Christina Ricci got breast reduction so she could get better parts. What does the size of her chest have anything to do with her acting? But, I've spent my whole life people making assumptions about me because of the way I'm built. And I sort of leaned into it and realized, Jesus Christ, I have this on my head. I have this on my chest. I'm built, of the 3 Sports Illustrated covers, I look most like Megan Thee Stallion. Though, on the other side of the color spectrum, obviously. We'd be ebony and ivory, live together in perfect sized booty. There we go. Okay. But you know, it's a big deal to see somebody who isn't a typical model build, meaning super skinny, represented and not and praised. And it isn't, oh, she's just a body. They praise her character in the magazine. And then she wore, like, I don't know if anybody remembers that Rose McGowan dress from like a red carpet. Megan Thee Stallion basically wore something similar. But what Megan Thee Stallion is doing, and what Naomi Osaka is doing, and what Lena Bloom is doing, is saying, you're good the way you are. There's lots of different beautiful. What the dude on Ratchet and Clank is like, no, only Naomi Osaka is acceptable. Everything else is disgusting. And I can't believe we're fighting about this. Like, so what if Rivet looked more like Lena Bloom or Megan Thee Stallion than Naomi Osaka? So what? Really? So what? Ratchet and Clank looks cartoony, but it's, you know, games with the names like Up Your Arsenal. They are not really kids games. It's that weird kind of in between where furry stuff or furry adjacent stuff inhabits. But Sports Illustrated, which, you know, has this ongoing thing about, oh, it's objectification of women, everything like that. They're like, all right, we're going to do our thing, but we're going to do it so we broaden what is beautiful. And we have this, and this is wonderful. And this is amazing. If you are at all attracted to women, there is something here that appeals to you, you know? Come on. There's options here. Ladies, gents, and everybody else attracted to women. What gaming is doing is saying, no, there's only one acceptable body at a time, and everything else is disgusting and sexualized. And so we get to the German gymnastics team. And I want to be incredibly clear. I am fully supportive of athletes wearing whatever they want as long as it doesn't impede or enhance their performances. Okay? But here's, again, from Sports Illustrated, the German gymnastics team, the women's gymnastics team. Now, you'll notice they still have flesh mesh, you know, simulating a plunging neckline. That's very common in in gymnastics costumes. You don't see anything. But instead of having the thing stop at what they call a bikini cut, they go down the leg. Now, these things are still so skin tight that if you look really closely, you can see an outline of a maxi pad. I won't call attention to it too much. Here's another picture. Now, it's beautiful form. It's still very form-fitting. And yes, I want to be sensitive to the fact that gymnastics, women's gymnastics, has had some really nasty sexual assault scandals, you know, and a lot of high-profile athletes were caught up in that. And so maybe there's some sensitivity there. But I am a big fan of gymnastics. I am a huge fan of Simone Biles. I have never once sexualized Simone Biles while she was performing. Her uniform is her uniform, right? The same way a train conductor wears a uniform, or somebody in a job who requires a uniform wears a uniform. I don't know where I got train conductor from. I just, like, doctors don't really, firefighters wear a uniform, like people in the military wear a uniform. Why are we going to sexualized costumes in gymnastics? They have to be form-fitting. One, so they don't get in the way when you're tumbling. Two, so they don't get caught on things like the uneven bars or the vault. 3, so the judges can see the lines of your body. So they know if your legs separate in the air or your arms are bent or things like that. They have to see that. It is a practical consideration. And, these women weren't being sexualized with the assault by the people watching the sport. It was a doctor. It was a team doctor doing it. Like, the context isn't even there. And from an emotional standpoint, I understand why that may make people very self-conscious. But I maintain it's also the message that we're sending women about what is good and what is bad and what is okay. And I very much think, in light of that, in light of the clearly deep self-consciousness of women like the German gymnastics team, and I don't lump the Norwegian handball team in the same thing because they play in sand. I understand why you might want to wear more down there so you don't get sand up your butt. And full disclosure, no other gymnasts, no other ladies gymnasts have followed suit. It's just the German team. Simone Biles actually said she feels more comfortable in the bikini cup because it makes her legs look longer. Go girl! But this is a healthier message to women everywhere than a guy freaking out about digital breasts because, heaven forbid, they might be larger than a thimble. And again, this is not, women don't develop eating disorders from media alone. Those get developed because of pressures from the people immediately around you. But media does give you a sense of what is normal. And this idea that there is some danger or there is some shame if somebody happens to look at you and find you sexy, that's a real societal problem. And we get past that by examples like Sports Illustrated that celebrate these women as whole people for their accomplishments, for their beauty inside as well as their beauty outside, and give something for everyone in the outside department as well. I mean, you couldn't get a better, 1, 2, 3 silhouettes than this. It is literally like, classic Sports Illustrated. Like, I love that the trans lady is the classic Sports Illustrated model. That's so good. And then Megan, thick. And then Naomi Osaka, who's more athletic. It's amazing. Different types of bathing suits, of course, Megan's the biggest showstopper, but that's healthier. That's healthier than what gaming's doing, which is banish the breasts. Banish the breasts. No sexualization whatsoever is what makes elite athletes uncomfortable. Because why would anybody care about the opinions of other people unless there was some shame connected to people seeing you that way? As somebody who did pinup modeling, which, let's face it, that's all, good girl pinup art is all, oops, my skirt blew up. That didn't mean to happen. Oh dear. It's all about the tease, but is inherently sexual. Yeah. I started exploring that stuff. My Chitara cosplay exists because of, well, I won't say who did it, but I won't say who requested it, but a prominent game developer apparently was a Chitara fan. And a buddy of mine says, that whole thing. I'm like, okay, why not? I was a Lionel girl, but Chitara, fine, cool. But did I know some people thought that was sexy? Awesome, right? Not gonna out anybody as a furry. And I didn't think of the whole furry component doing it. It was an 80s cartoon, right? 80s cartoons. What gets you into trouble, right? But, Ivy Valentine, like, that's a dominatrix outfit. Of course people are going to find that sexy. Power Girl, Ms. Marvel before she was Captain Marvel, Poison Ivy, these characters all connect sex and power. And that's the whole point. Power Girl. Power is right in her name. And, she's got, boobs the size of mine. And, everything in my size is a minimizer of some kinds, which means I flatten the tissue out instead of, if I buy the European bra, it's like, whoa, hello. It actually is sort of a conversation piece at that point. So I keep those away from when I really want, launch the torpedoes kind of thing. But this, boobs are disgusting attitude is disempowering women, right? Whereas Sports Illustrated is going, we don't care how big your boobs are. You're beautiful. You rock what you got. And we care about your beautiful outside as well as your beautiful inside. And I think that message should be sent more to men. I mentioned this on Twitter as well, that there is nothing wrong with finding another human being beautiful. In fact, there is everything right with finding another human being beautiful. And I use that as a gender neutral term, right? I think we should get better at compliment without expectation. All the spaces I have inhabited with theater and with modeling, there is an expectation that, I shouldn't say all the spaces, theater and modeling, there was this expectation that everybody who showed up was there to do a job. There were photo shoots where I was naked except for a Canadian flag wrapped around me. There were other photo shoots where I had a chainmail bikini and it kept breaking. I got a much stronger chainmail bikini after that. I actually recorded that shoot and put it on a DVD because I got nothing to hide. But everybody was expected to be professional. Everybody's there to do a job. With television, yeah, some crew members could be absolute fucking assholes. And I was there as a producer on the show, as a senior producer on the show, to bust them down when they got out of line. That was considered unprofessional behavior. It happened. I won't deny it happened. But it was wrong. They were told it was inappropriate. We go over to gaming and it's ew boobs. We found a handful of women who agree with us at ew boobs. But let's face it. The guys that are popping off about this stuff, it's not... I don't know what to do, which I think is the majority of men. But these guys who are really, really angry about this stuff and feel no qualms at all for not only lumping a trans man in with women, but also, ooh, boobs. These guys didn't have to be told to feel that way. They already felt that way. That is a form of misogyny. When you find the traditional female form that disgusting, that's a problem. Right? It's one thing to say, I prefer a more athletic build. It's another thing to go, ugh, right? And throw that big a tantrum over it. It's not healthy. And it's sending a message that women have to wrap ourselves in as many layers of cloth as we possibly can so that men, and we're given the message that that's normal for men to either go, to be completely incapable of dealing with it one way or another. And I don't believe that's true. Because I've worked in male-dominated industries all my life, because I've done those photo shoots, because I've worked with a ton of very, very top-notch professional men, I don't believe that's true. But if the German ladies gymnastics team is feeling the need to cover up as elite athletes to avoid being sexualized, we got to work on this messaging. We gotta make it clear that if somebody sexualizes you and that's not what you're there to do, that is not your problem. That is theirs. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong if you want to be seen that way. That's your right as a fully formed human being. Nobody busts a man down for putting on a nice suit so he's sexually appealing. Let's be real here. Nobody thinks, Chris Hemsworth is demeaned. Give me a break. This is something that only women have to deal with, and it's wrong. And I praise Sports Illustrated for the strides they are taking. And I hope the game developers look at that example and look at how they're praising inner beauty as well as outer beauty and female achievement and female accomplishment and women questioning, women challenging the status quo as positives instead of trying to force us all into one single box at any given time, which is a moving target. And 1 minute, it's like, oh, this is what's in. And the next minute, nope, dirty, gross. It's not acceptable that a professional would be that freaked out over a discussion of the silhouette of a character. That he won. He won that fight again. That's unacceptable. That's unprofessional. Certainly talking about it after he won the fight is unprofessional. And it makes women uncomfortable. It constantly having it forced on us that this is a big fucking deal is uncomfortable. And it needs to stop. It's okay for people to be beautiful. People of all genders. It's okay to want to feel attractive. Holy shit. Can we please stop making this world suck even more? What we need to do is broaden the definition of what is considered attractive, and Sports Illustrated is doing that. Bravo for them. Game developers, please take note. Cut your shit. Like I said, if you like this sort of thing, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.